Alex Hitt,
Burt Levy,
Roelf Woldering,
Ron Davenport,
Sandra Connor,
Isaac Young.
Today's topic is, how do you generate leads and sales for your business? Burt Levy, would you please start us off?
The way I generate leads and sales is somewhat counterintuitive to what many do, where many look for that linear relationship. They look to find somebody that they can connect with that will result in a transaction. I don't. What I do is I try to promote know, like, and trust. And I am open to meeting with anybody, whether it looks on the surface that they can help me or not. I think it's important to just be open to understanding and learning about people's journeys. And I think when you can do that, and, I've always said that anybody who wants to spend time with you to find out why you are the way you are is an absolute gift. And I try to take advantage of that gift. Many people in sales generation or lead generation, they try and find that perfect connection, or many times they judge the package. And when they judge the package, they miss the gift. And what the gift is each one of our respective journeys. So being open to meeting a plethora of people and learning about their background, their journey, that concept has tripled my business in the last 3 years.
So far, lead generation for me has been networking and then doing live streams on social media platforms where I actually perform game shows and then invite people in, and they've referred me to others in their organization to reach out to me and then put on shows for their organization.
In the last 4 weeks, I've been involved in an intense series of discussions about lead generation, largely because my own lead generation doesn't work very well. And I've been listening to lots of opinions about how to do it, and they've run the gambit. The one common thing that's come out is that if you don't know where your audience is, and your audience isn't where you're generating leads, no matter what your approach is, it isn't going to work. And that's kind of explained some of the difficulties I've been having, because I need to get to C-level business owners, and they do not spend a lot of time networking or online. So the thing that's come out of that for me is that I have to step back and think very seriously about what's the most effective channel to use to get the attention and the mind share of those people. And I think the common message that's come out of 4 weeks of dialogue is that's as true for somebody who's networking the way Burt does, or on LinkedIn the way Ron is on LinkedIn.
lead generation can be tricky, particularly for solopreneurs. I am a solopreneur, so since we wear all the hats, we have to sparse out time for marketing. And when you have a business that is basically consulting related or services related that's intangible and adds a layer of difficulty to it. Therefore, the best way to get leads for me has been multifold. Networking to meet people kind of en masse, but then being able to identify among those folks which of them could possibly be clients, which of them could possibly be referral partners or champions, and which of them probably aren't ready to do either one right now. Once that's evaluated, then they can go into a process of nurturing. Since my company is very different and people don't expect what's actually being offered, they hear video, they assume it means videography, and it doesn't. So that layer of education is critical to actually generating leads.
So this is absolutely a new adventure in my life. I'm fairly introverted, so this lead generation is kind of a difficult thing for me as well. So I take as much advice as I can. And I'd resonate with Sandra and Burt, just taking networking meetings, going to the larger groups, learning what people do, finding people that could have compatible businesses, and then just getting to know them. Sit down for a coffee, learn about their life, learn about what makes them tick, what their passions are, and then trying to help one another, give to them without the expectation of getting back in return, and just try to build solid relationships with people. Probably the second way that we would get leads would be just through offering really good service. So part of our process would be sitting down for a referral gathering meeting. So if we met or exceeded someone's standards when we provided our service, then we ask if there's anyone else in their circle, family, friends, colleagues that could use the same service that they received from us that day. And a lot of people are generally open to giving some names, and then we follow up with them and see if that's something that would benefit them, they would be interested in.
Yeah, great job, Isaac. I do a lot of different things as far as lead generation goes. I have a multi-pronged approach. A lot of it is through social media and networking and referrals. But to really be clear about it, I create online events that I promote through social media. And the online event allows me to make kind of that initial face-to-face contact with that person. And then what I do is I try to direct them to other more niche specific events. And then if a one-on-one is warranted, then I try to do one-on-ones after that. I also do some level of cold outreach through social media and through email marketing, which isn't usually as successful as the other one, but it's a way of generating leads that may not come into my normal space, or people who might not be aware of online events or aren't spending their time on social media. So there's tools out there that you can look up other B2B businesses' contact information, and then it's just about crafting a message that might be received well through a cold email. And what a cold email means is unsolicited and they're not expecting it, right? So I do a lot of different things as far as lead generation goes, but I think a big part, and something that a lot of people mentioned here today, was that following up with the people that you've already done business with or that you're already connected with can give you a warm introduction, which might give you a higher success rate at following up and closing that lead than if you're reaching out cold. And I've definitely experienced that in my business. And how I continue to re-engage the people that I'm connected with are with the online events that I host every single week. So I'm kind of using those online events as a continuous touch point to stay connected to my network and broadcast into that network what I need or what I'm looking for. But I would love to hear your kind of opinions on these other methods of lead generation that maybe weren't talked about: cold email, social media, and some of these type of things that are controversial in some way. Some people say cold email, never do it. Some people say cold email, that's all I do, right? So what are your guys' thoughts on those subjects or any others?
I think it's a great question. For me personally, over the last 2 years, I've generated close to $1 million in the technology space, and not $1 came from a cold email or a cold outreach in LinkedIn. I don't particularly like it myself. I use LinkedIn to network, not sell. It all came from organically from my network. But the one thing, kind of like the silver bullet, so to speak, that I recommend to anybody that I consult with or talk to is revitalize dormant relationships. Many relationships go dormant for no other reason than time, space. You're moving left, I'm moving right. You're raising kids, my kids are out of college. And sometimes just things go stagnant. And just to pick up the phone and say, hey, it's been a while. I've been thinking about you. How are you? Don't pick up the phone to call them to sell them anything. Just say, I want to see how you're doing. It's been a while. And reviving dormant relationships could be a huge, huge, huge factor in generating new business.
Couple of things. One, that word I was looking for is parse, not sparse. You can edit that back in. And cold email has its place if it's properly used as a part of a larger strategy. It can't be the only way people generate leads. Number one, with the automations that are currently in place, it's downright annoying to get a cold email from someone, this is for me, that obviously doesn't know me. They may start talking about, gosh, you have such an impressive profile on LinkedIn. What was impressive about it? And then the next paragraph is, let me sell you this service. That's something I don't need. So making that connection is key. Maybe cold email to initially reach out, but then do it in a way where you can build a relationship.
So you all get probably dozens of cold emails to which your response is delete. I certainly get them on every channel, but that's not the real story that I want to tell at the moment. I have a friend who's a local photographer. That local photographer got into taking your grandchild as a sports hero portraits and tried to build that business using the advice from a number of people using social marketing and so on. Got nowhere. And then one day somebody said to him, well, you're not going where your audience is. Grandparents take their grandchildren to sports venues. Instead of using social media, do a nice little poster, stick that poster at every hockey rink, every baseball arena, every place where kids and grandparents get together to play sports. And he did that. His business has not stopped growing. He went where the audience was. And I think that, one of the things that often gets missed is that if you don't have a clear picture of where your audience spends their time, or you don't invite them the way that Alex is talking about, coming to spend time with you, no matter what you do, you're not likely to have a lot of success generating leads.
It's interesting how society and salespeople have kind of evolved here. I think maybe back in the day, people were more receptive to receiving a cold email. But now and today in 2023, we're just so overloaded with advertisement and pitches and people reaching out through social media, soliciting us. And there's automation that makes that process even easier now. And you can really mass market to a lot of people. And I think generally people are very, very skeptical, and for good reason, about people soliciting them off the internet. And so that trust, I think now you have to build so much more trust with people in order to sell them, because there's so much mistrust around the online space and business and people selling people online. But Burt, you have another kind of point? Go ahead.
The one thing I was going to say with regard to the cold emails coming, whether they come to you directly or they come through LinkedIn, I approach them from an empathetic sort of thinking, realizing that, look, at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to feed their family. Now, what they think works for them, what irritates me, at the end of the day, they're just trying to feed their family. So out of respect for that process, I have a canned statement that I send back, because I do try to respond to every single one. And it says, we don't know each other, nor have we ever met. If you'd be willing to connect to learn about each other's business in order to find mutually beneficial ways to work together, I would gladly make time available. If you get 20 of those in your LinkedIn box, I guarantee you, if you send that, 10 will disappear immediately. And what you do is you weed out the takers. The people that are interested in taking, they'll go away. And 10 people will say, absolutely, I'd love to connect. And now they understand that your goal is to open up a dialogue, and you never know what could happen. But that's what I do with the cold emails.
So I'm still a student. So I'm just going to bring to the table what I've done and what has not worked. So far, my outreach campaign when it comes to cold has been through LinkedIn connections, just with an ideal client, basically reaching out. And, it's about 10% response rate. And I don't try to sell anything. I just want to make a connection, just try to get the connection list. So that way, when I do something on LinkedIn, I want to let them know about it. From my experience, definitely not putting all your eggs in one basket, doing some variety. So yeah, just some awareness to say you do a little of this, a little of that, but try not to go full force and depend on social media, simply because social media can turn on you at any time. So start building real relationships, real connections.
Alex's point about trust on the internet. It's been interesting to listen over the past sort of 7 years. The online marketing gurus talk about how many touches you have to establish trust. When it started, it was 3. Then a couple of years later, it was 7. And the other day, I went to a session with an online marketing expert. He said, it takes 42 before they trust you. There seems to be this, I think you need to find a better way than trying to reach out to somebody 42 times before they'll respond. Burt's approach to it, hey, do you want to talk? And weeds out a lot of people who don't want to talk or are just doing that kind of stuff. So I think more and more we need to move into a world where that number is going to be 142 in 5 years. And we got to get out of that endless touch process and do something like Burt does. Hey, if you're interested, talk to me one-on-one, because that weeds away a lot of that process.
Ron said something that struck a chord with me, where you said, I'm a student, still a student. Use the word student. And I like to say that you always be the student, no matter where you are in life, always be the student. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. I think you need people in your life that are further ahead than you, people that have a bigger vision than you, people that are more experienced, and people that are out of your league, because you need to be exposed to new levels so that you can go to new levels. And that's kind of how I approach things. I always want people around me that are better, smarter, bigger visionaries. And it's amazing the growth you experience by surrounding yourself with those kind of people.
I couldn't agree more with that, Burt. I just left a networking meeting where the discussion is basically about funding and finance and specific industries. And some of the time that meeting is admittedly over my head, but it does spark that learning that I want and need to do, because it not only helps me, it ultimately helps my clients when I understand better what's going on in multiple industries.
That's a wrap for this episode of Podcast Circle. Thank you to all of our guests for sharing their insights today. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. Also, head over to my website, alexhitt.com, to find additional resources, to attend upcoming online events, and to apply to be the next guest on Podcast Circle.